Hey there, folks. Thank you for tuning in. In today's tutorial, I'm going to walk you through how to make a Stranger Things like scene in Touchdesigner. This is a preview of what we'll be creating. Let's let it play through. We'll go over how to create this text using SOPs, and then I'll walk you through how to make each one of these separate animations. And yeah, I have four scenes in total. We'll see if we get through all of them. If not, I'll at least give you the tools to get through them on your own. Cool, and just to compare, I'll show you the Stranger Things intro I'm referencing. So you see they have parts where they have the individual letters moving around, and then it finally reveals the full word. Awesome. So yeah, let's begin. Before we go into Touchdesigner, obviously a crucial part of this is the font. I'm not really sure how to pronounce this font, ITC Benguiat, but this is the font that is used. It's available through Creative Cloud, Adobe Creative Cloud. It's also available for purchase on My Fonts, and the specific typeface we need is the regular bold one. And before we get working, I'll just give you an overview of the final network. So where we're going to start is creating a SOP of the text. So you see I have two lines of text. You can type in whatever you want, and all of this will adjust. And from this, we are then going to render it, make a couple different scenes rendering each one of these animations. So you have the individual letter, all the letters moving, and then a couple panning ones. Lastly, there's a zoom one. Awesome. So yeah, let's begin. Move this window over. This is a little nice utility in the bottom right from Electronaut. Show what keys I'm pressing. Hopefully it's helpful. And yeah, I also bought a new microphone, so I'm hoping my voice audio is better than last tutorials. Cool, so yeah, I have a new file here. This is just the talks for the bottom right. And yeah, just go ahead and make sure you save your file first. I already have it saved. Make a folder. And then, just put the font we're going to use in our folder here so we can easily access it. All right, so first thing I'm going to do is open up the parameters of my project. One thing I do, I just rename the parent shortcut to scene. That's just a convention I use for my setup. You can leave it as project. And then, again, little trick, you can right click in the nav to open parameters of parent comps. Next, we're going to go ahead and customize component and add some custom parameters. I'm just going to add a page text and two fields for each line of text. So I'll have text 1 and text 2. Cool. Just go back up. We can see those parameters. I'll use the text YouTube tutorial, but the way we build this should be able to adapt pretty much for any text you put. And I'm just putting it in all caps. Awesome. So first thing I'm going to do is throw down a base for the text, making the text SOP. And let's get in here. All right, so first thing we need to do is I'm actually going to make another base just to keep things organized. We are going to get those parameters from our project 1. I'm going to use a parameter dat, and I like to use the global op shortcuts and stuff. So what we can do is parent.scene. So yeah, for those of you who don't know, in the common tab, you can give things a parent shortcut, and so anything inside of that comp can access the parent just by doing parent.scene. There's also a global op shortcut where you can do op dot, whatever you type in here. Pretty useful pattern. So, no matter where we move this in our network, as long as it's inside here, it can get that. Great. So first things first, we want to get the first text parameter. I'm just going to select text here. And we don't need the header or label. So that's the first line of text. And I'm going to use a little helper that I made. I'm not going to write the code out. I'll show you the code and feel free to copy it. But basically, it's a little helper where we can give it a piece of text or a string, and it'll use a script dat to split it up into table rows. I was having trouble doing this with default Touchdesigner operators. So yeah, I just made a quick script dat. You'll see here on cook, clear it out, pull the text in from the first input, get this text, and then for each character in the text, append a row to this script. Great. So let's jump out of here now. Oh, let's make sure we have an out. Cool. Okay, so now that we have everything in a table, let's drop another null. And what we want to do, if we look at Stranger Things, you'll notice the first letter and the last letter of the top word are larger. So we're going to, actually I don't need a null here. We're going to go ahead and break the text up into 3 parts. So first, let's get the first letter. I'm going to get a select dat. Let's select rows by index. And I'm going to put the start row index into the end row index just so we get 1 letter. Let's go ahead and do that. Put another select. Let's get the last letter. We do by index. I believe we can, let's just get this value. We want to, the row index of our size of our table. Yeah, that's just a pattern I used to, start row and end row, make the end row reference start row. So yeah, those will get those last letters. And lastly, let's get the middle letters. So another select by index. We'll start at 1 and end at the length of our table -2. And perfect. All right, so next what we want to do, we want to get all these into just text instead of tables. So we can use the convert dat for that. Convert to text. Use that down here. And you'll notice, if we just do that, let's see. You'll see by default, this is putting them on new lines because we had table rows. So just to get around that and use a transpose, bam. Probably could have adjusted that in here as well to make them columns, but this tool I have just does rows. I use it a lot for instancing and stuff. Cool. Okay, and lastly, let's just send all of these out of this comp. So I'll just copy this out that a few times. Perfect. All right. So next thing we want to do is let's start building this SOP. So I'm going to make a null for each one of these. Connect these up. So let's call this text start. Just naming them, just keep things sensical. Text middle. Great. So now we have 3 null operators with each part of the text we need. All right, and so let's start building this with SOPs. So we're going to use the text SOP here. One little note is actually Touchdesigner did just release a new type of operator called the geo text comp. It's really awesome. I'll actually show you guys really quick. Here you'll see there's geotext now if you're in the newest version of Touchdesigner. There's also a text panel. It's using a new text rendering engine called Slug. It's really nice at rendering text. And if we go into operator snippets, they have a ton of great examples. But you'll see that with one operator, you can do a ton of custom transformations on text and stuff, which is pretty crazy. You know, it's pretty awesome. You can do this just with one comp and a DAT powering it. You'll even see with Phaser, they have some cool exploding animations. Yeah, I tried to make an attempt at doing this with this operator, but I ran into a couple limitations. One of them is being you cannot use align material on this. And so my end result, I'm really trying to get an outlined piece of text. That was one deal breaker. And then it was kind of more convoluted actually to create this layout we're going to be creating with this. But yeah, there's some really powerful tools in the geotext comp as well as the text comp. So hopefully I will follow up some future tutorials with those. Anyways, get back to business. I threw down a text SOP here. In the parameters, let's go ahead. Should have put your font file in your project. Let's load that up. Let's align this to center, and the piece of text in the text field. Let's make this an expression, and let's get our text start dot text. Okay. Let me check if there's anything else here. We're going to change a few more things on this, but I will, show you guys some issue. We're going to end up changing the output, but for now I'll leave as triangles. Cool. So let's copy and paste that. So the middle one, text middle. Lastly, text. Great. Okay. And we're going to be adding, let's put nulls at the end of each one of these. Connect those nulls up. Okay, and now let's go ahead and add a merge SOP in order to get all these three into the singular SOP. And lastly, let's put an out. Cool. So as you can see, we need to do some work here. I'm going to go ahead in this top right, click the down arrow, split our window into two panes. I'm going to use a geo viewer, and now we can see our SOP here. Cool. All right. So, first things first. So yeah, basically what we want to do first is get the start letter and the end letter to the edges here. And we're going to do a couple transforms. First thing I'm going to do is horizontal align. I want the origin of this first letter where 0 is on the right. Similarly with the last letter, I'm going to do horizontal align left. Cool, you can see it. We're getting there. Let's see what else. Oh, I'm actually also going to, this is kind of just a small adjustment, but, so no, we're going to, actually there's a reason for this. Sorry, so what I'm going to do, let's put a transform here, and in this post tab, this post tab is really great. You can align your SOP in a few different ways. One thing we're going to do is move the Y to the middle, and then let me see what else I set. From input max, right? So Yeah, we're saying translate from the origin in Y, but move it to the max Y position. So now this Y has our axis at the top. Let's go ahead and do this to all three. And copy, copy, paste, paste. Let's put that there and there. And let's hook these up. Cool. All right. Next, well, let's make a little bit more room here. Yeah, I'm going to throw another null here. All right. Let's just give this a name, text, middle. One nice little shortcut is if you hit the space key, it'll add an underline for you, which is nice, since operator names can't have spaces. Cool. Next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to paste in another little tool I use. I'll quickly show you what this does. So you'll see here this base comp has a custom parameter called SOP. I will paste links for this tool, as well as this table text convert tool. But basically what I use this for is it takes this SOP that you pass in and pulls out a bunch of coordinates and size parameters that SOPs have. You'll see we get the min and max x, min and max y, width, height, and then center x, center y. We won't be using all of these today, but all those are pretty convenient. And you can also see if you middle mouse click a SOP, you can see that the SOP has this data stored in it. So all this is doing is really pulling out these attributes from the SOP there. Great. So I'm going to connect this to a null. Let me just put this to the side. And so what we want to use this data for is to move our first and last letter. So let's put a transform here. And yeah, we want to translate the X. So I'm going to make this viewer active, grab minimum X, put that there. Bam, you'll now see our Y is over there. Similarly, with our last letter, we'll do the same thing, except we will use the max X value. Bam. All right, so now we have a first line looking just like a regular piece of text. Next, what we can do is, we look at our Stranger Things scene again. Like I said, the first and last letter are larger. So let's just go ahead and make those larger now. I settled on font size 1.4, but you're obviously feel free to play around. And what I'm going to do is just drag this parameter from the first letter and make the second letter reference it. Awesome. So yeah, now we are getting somewhere. Cool, cool. Okay. And yeah, that's basically our top word there. Let's get started with the second word. So once again, we are going to get a parameter dat. And we are going to use our parent shortcut for parent.scene. Okay. And now we want to get text 2. Let's put this as a null. Let's name it text _ 2. And then the parameter, we don't need a lot of these fields. We just want the text itself. Awesome. Let's just go ahead, copy and paste this middle one because it has all of our settings that we need. And boom. All right. Let's see what's next. Okay, so, kind of the tricky thing here is I want to make the scene dynamic. So, or dynamic meaning you can type in any text you want. And because of that, we can't, the width of either of these lines is never going to be consistent. And so say if this second word was really long, it may start to intersect the Y and the E here. If we look here, this second word is kind of nudged in between the two big letters. So to do that, first I'm going to throw down another transform here. And in the transform tab, there's a convenient utility called post scale. And basically what that does, actually let's look at the coordinates here. You'll see the size is 1. Here size X is 6. Basically this is going to shrink our SOP to fit and be 1 unit big. Cool. Okay, next what we're going to do is, all right, so now we're going to use some more of this data from this middle word, and we are going to shrink this text to fit basically within the middle word. So what we want to do is I'm going to go to this transform, and let's actually, before we do that, let me just put a null here, and let's just throw this in the merge so we can see what we're working with. Cool. All right, so just to go over it quickly, I have a text SOP. First transform is doing scale unity so that we have a consistent size no matter what word. And next I'm going to use another transform and scale it up to be the width of this middle text here. So now tutorial and OUTUB are both the same width. Throw a third transform. You potentially could, you might be able to have less transforms, but I just preferred to have them separate just to keep track of things. So once again, let's see here. This one we are going to origin max as well. Great. Okay, so now we have tutorial there. And let me just check. All right. So I got that transform. And okay, a couple of things. So let's get these texts vertically aligned here. So do have a lot of transforms here. Let's just see if this one lets us. Nope. Okay. So it does appear the post. Oh, happens at the end. That's why it's called post. So I'm going to put another transform. Actually, let's see here. Okay. I'm actually going to break this merge up really quick. So I'm going to we'll have one merge with the top word. And then we'll do a second merge to get the second word in there. And the reason for that is I want to move this top word up. So my goal is kind of to have, the x-axis run through the middle of this. So let's put another transform. And this one, let's, get the height of this middle word. Okay, boom. Looking good. And lastly, let's add one more transform down here. I'm just going to use this one to finally give a little bit of space there between the two words. Awesome. Okay. And then lastly, I'm going to go ahead at the very end, add one last transform, and we are going to this transform, we're setting X, Y, and Z post-translate to be in the center. I guess the Z one isn't really necessary, but this will just ensure that our whole SOP now is just centered around the middle point. Awesome. Okay, so let's just continue building this up here. really major thing we're missing at this point is the lines at the top and the bottom. So let's get making those. Throw down a rectangle SOP. All right. And let's go ahead. Just going to copy and paste this little SOP size comp. And what we're going to do is, let's insert a null here. Call this text top. What I'm going to do is pass this null of this into there. So, the goal is for this top bar to go across the whole top here. So now, let's put a null. Our rectangle, oops, the width can be there. Let's just throw this into our merge so we can see it. Cool. The height, I landed on a value at 0.1. And then we can just smudge this up a little bit more. I landed at 1.14. Cool, so there's our top line. You'll also see there is two lines to the left and right under these large letters. So let's just duplicate what we did here. This SOP size is going to use the first letter. Let's go ahead and merge this as well. Let's pull in these parameters here. So it's going to be the width of the first letter. Nope, that's not right. I think I actually just, since we are using a consistent font size, we do know the Y position here. So let's move this down to where we need it. Great. So let's see. Let's make the center X here. Great. And actually, okay, so we want the center of this line, the bottom left here, to be the center of the Y. And I'm actually, so that's what we see here. I manually positioned the Y. This letter shouldn't be moving on the Y axis. And I'm actually going to just leave the size as a manual size and just leave it at 1. We don't necessarily need to make it the exact size of the letter. Let's just copy and paste that. And for this one, let's use the center X of the right letter. Throw that in the merge. Let's just make sure that this stop size one references the last letter. Bam. So yeah, now we pretty much have what we need to start rendering things out. Awesome. Let's pop back out of here. So yeah, so now we have our SOP here. Next, what I'm going to do is put this in a geometry. I'm going to name it geofull text. Great. And then we can minimize this a little bit. For the sake of organization, since we are going to have a few different scenes, you might call them, some of the panning, zooming in, etc. What I'm just going to go ahead and do straight off the bat is have a base for each one of those. So let's call this text panning. And let's jump inside. Actually, before we do that, last thing, let's give this geo a material. I'm going to go ahead, throw down a line material. Let's throw that on there. Okay, so I mentioned this earlier, so you'll see right away, once we throw a line material, or if you do wireframe mode with W, you will see that this text is made up of a bunch of these crazy lines here. Let's go in here, and the reason for that is we can see, let's go to our text SOP, one of them, hit W, you'll see the wireframe is made like this. And yeah, the way we can actually just fix this is I'm going to select all the text SOPs, and we can do output closed polygons, or open polygons. And so now, bam, you'll see our line material just gives us the outline. I will say the only kind of downside of this, sometimes it's hard to see, but yeah, maybe on this E here. The only thing about open and closed polygons is, let's hit P, view points really quick. You'll see that, you know, when you do get really zoomed in on these text SOPs, the edges kind of are a little jagged. Sadly, open and closed polygons don't have a level of detail parameter. For this tutorial, you know, it's not the end of the world. I've made a little workaround where sometimes I could just show you really quick if this is something that bothers you. What I've done in the past, let's load our font really quick. Let's see how much better this technique does. So if we put the U, what I've done in the past is I've used a texture operator or a text top. I made it something decently big. Let's bring this font size up. Basically, I will get a texture operator decently big, and what I'll do is use a trace SOP. You'll see if we do wireframe, it is the outlines. We show points, you'll see this is way more refined, and you can even, you know, add way more points. Step size, maybe this. Yeah, you can get, I mean, you can play with this, but if you really did need more higher definition text SOP, this is one little workaround I've done. But yeah, it's too much for what we need here. Don't forget to save your file. Save. All right, so let's just review what we did. We made the text SOP, and just to prove, or let's test our theory here. Some other word. So you'll see no matter what we type, so you can put a space here. No matter what we type, this layout, I mean, the W is kind of intersecting the S. We can adjust some of that, but overall, this layout is adapting to whatever words we type, which is pretty awesome. Okay. So yeah, we have our text SOP. We made it a geo, and we gave that geo a line material. What I'm going to do, let's just make the line be white. We're not going to do any far or near stuff, so the line can always be white. And what else? Let me check what size I used. I think I left it at size 1. All right, so let's go. So yeah, threw down an empty base comp here. Let's go ahead in here and throw down a render top. We'll build out a render network. For our render to work, we need at minimum a camera. Awesome. Let me just make sure I'm doing this right. Cool. And yeah, let's get our geo in here. I'm going to try, I think this should work, another little trick with operator paths. So another nifty little thing in Touchdesigner is I opened up our top level container, opened the parameters. So we've already given this a parent shortcut of scene. What we also can do is make internal shortcuts. And what these let us do is, I'll just go ahead and show you, it lets us make little shortcuts for operators inside of our network. And the reason I like to use these is, if I ever move anything around, if a bunch of things are referencing one thing and I move it, then I have to go through the whole network and find where to update that. And so here I'm going to make a shortcut name, Text Geo, and let's look what we named it. Okay, so Text Geo, the operator is Geo full text. And the way we can use this, hopefully this works, is in our render here, I'm going to make geometry an expression, and the way we can reference this shortcut is a IOP, internal operator. There we go. Yep. So we use IOP dot, the nickname we gave it. So if this were to ever get moved, all I need to do is update this path, and anywhere that referenced it will correctly update. Awesome. Cool. So let's go ahead and first thing we're going to make is the, let me show you here, just a left and right panning to start out. So you see it starts off the screen on the right and ends off the screen on the left. All right, so first let's figure out the min and maximum. Let me check my camera distance I used here. So let's zoom it out a little more. Let's make sure all our text is in there. All right. And so basically we want our camera to animate from, right now it looks like negative 5.7 all the way to, positive 5.7. But as we know, we want this to work with any sized text. So what we're going to do is use our little helper. Again, SOP size. Let's go ahead and make this the SOP. Great. All right, so now we have this. Just for the sake of it, let's reference that with the internal operator. So say text SOP size, that's in text SOP /out2. All right. So yeah, now we have basically the coordinates of this whole SOP. All right, let's put a select. And what we can do is we want to select using an expression IOP dot text SOP size. Bam. All right, and so what we want from here is the min and max x. So min x, max x. Great. And yeah, so there's a couple ways you could do this, but in order to make this animation, or panning from left to right, I use a lot of this stuff at music events, and so typically there'll be a BPM I'm working with, and so what we're going to use is a beat operator. What I'm actually going to do as well, we're going to actually use a beat throughout all of this. There's a couple different things you could do. The beat operator, you could lock it to your timeline. I'll usually do this more for, making a music video that is a defined length. But in this scenario, typically I'll be at a live show. So, any live performance, really usually not using the timeline length. But instead, there also is this update global, which we don't need for the sake of this tutorial, but what you can do with update global is have all your beats be, or actually just show you guys really quick. So you see these two beats are off sync right now. If I just pulse this one, it's just resetting itself. Oh, shame incorrect. Update global. it should reset. Nope, I'm actually mistaken. Let's see here. Like I said, we don't need it for the sake of this tutorial, but yeah, if you turn this on, this will, I think it'll reset this beat. Let's see. Interesting. Should be resetting the global beat. Whatever. For the sake of this, we don't need to worry about that. Right, we're at the top level here, or inside our first container. Put a beat down, put a null, and let's just use another internal operator. You can add as many as you like. Let's call this, so now beat is beat. And you can play around with these settings, but speed that felt relatively nice to me was period being 32. So every 32 beats, this beat will restart. All right. So let's throw down another select, expression, internal operator dot beat. Great. Let's go ahead. So we want these to be used in our camera. I'm going to rename this to TX. Okay. And so basically what we want to do, this is going from 0 to 1, right? And we want to basically, let's see, yeah, pan from, let's put a null here. Instead of going from 0 to 1, we want it to be relative to the size of our SOP. So let's go here, make the min-x to start, and throw a null. Now our camera, let's see what this does. Right, and you'll see here, because it's just panning across the sides of this, it starts and ends with it in the middle. And so, you know, we want it to be totally off of the screen when it starts and ends. So let's quickly, you know, the value that seemed right, let's just double check. About 5.7 is what we want. And so let's figure out what this difference is. 2.13. Okay. What we're going to do is just do some simple math here. Negative 2.13. What I'm going to do is make a constant chop with the same channel names. And we can just throw down a math chop. And we can combine chops to be add. Great, so now this should, oh, whoops, need to go back to our camera. Bam, make it back to this expression again. All right, awesome. So it's starting and ending with it totally off the screen. Great. Cool. And, you know, as I mentioned, you can play with this number. So if we go to our beat here, we could speed this up to be 16. You go faster, slower, whatever you want. And lastly, let's just put it out. Boom. All right, so now we can see snow animation. Awesome. And just a little note here, we'll get to this, but I typically like to do things in white and then add the coloring towards the very end. What's nice about this is you can have a color parameter on your scene or something and kind of do all your coloring at the end without having it sprinkled through everything. So yeah, we're just going to leave this for white as white now. Awesome. So next up, let's do this one where we are drawing the letter. And this one, as you can imagine, doesn't actually need this whole text geo. So we're not actually going to use this guy here. Okay, throw down another base. We can call it draw a letter. We can close this. Okay, we're going to throw down another render network. Throw down a camera. Let's go ahead and put out. Great. Okay. So, all right. So also the way I built this is we kind of, I mean, you could do what you want, but I thought it'd be a little boring and draw the same letter over and over. So what I did was, made it go through all the letters. And so let's go ahead and get those letters. Okay. So, right, let's go ahead and do an out with all the letters here. And you know what? Let's just, might be going overkill. I mean, not really, but yeah, I've started using internal operators a lot, so why not? Let's make one for these letters. And let's see, it's at text SOP /out4. Cool. So now this internal operator is referencing this table of letters. Let's go back up. And this dat will be IOP. What's it saying? Oh, letters. Interesting. Wonder why this isn't working here. Text SOP. Huh. Shortcut. Not really sure why this isn't working. Text SOP. Does it find this? Oh, I may have, let's see here. Ah, text SOP /text. Had the path wrong. Let's click. Okay, there we go. Bam. All right. Cool. All right, so now we have a table of all the letters. And what I want to do is select one of them at a time. We could do this in here, but whatever. Sometimes I like making multiple operators that each do one thing, just to keep things tidy. Okay. And basically, what's nice about doing everything with a beat chop is, we can now easily sync up a bunch of things. So, we can have the beat control our camera like we did in the last one. We can also have it control which letter it's going through. So just gonna, here, let's do a select of IOP.beat. Cool. And we're gonna go back up. In this beat here, actually, we'll need to change something. What we're gonna do in this beat at our top level is also output a pulse. But I believe this will now, yeah, so let's make sure in our panning scene, let's make sure to only select the ramp. We don't need the pulse in this one. Here, however, we can select pulse and let's put a count. All right. So now every 16 beats or whatever our period, I believe it's still 16. Yeah. And I'll move back to 32 at the, sometimes I like to keep this kind of, let's even go 8 for now. It's a little too fast, but this will also let us just see this run a little quicker. So every 8 beats, this will count up. And one thing we want to do is, this eventually is going to get longer than this table. So what we can do in the count chop is loop this. And let's reference our table. Let's use this little Python expression. Maybe it might just be num. There we go. Okay, and you know, encoding things are index starts at 0, so we'll just do -1. Great. Let's put this null here. Up, and actually, I was incorrect. Let's make this reference select 1, because this one, the number of rows is going to be 1. All right, so this select, let's select rows by index. Drag that there. Like I did before, start. I'll make the end reference to start. Cool. All right, and so yeah, every tick of our beat, it's going to select a new letter. Put a null here. All right. Now let's start building our render scene. What I'm going to do, put a geo. Let's go in here, delete it. Let's go back to our project. I'm just gonna, because I'm lazy, let's go ahead and copy this, which has our font stuff. Great. This just has our font settings. You know, maybe this is more work instead of, but basically, all right, let's get null, or you know, let's name this letter. All right, so this text SOP, we want to make it get from and instead of text, since letter is a table, we want 0, 0. Let's put in the center. And yeah, let's see what our yeah, you know what, font size, actually just leave it 1. Cool. All right. And so the way we can get this drawing effect is with a carve SOP. So you'll see here a carve lets us kind of draw the SOP. And let's make this viewer active and turn off adaptive homing so it doesn't move around. So you see as I move this from 0 to 1, it draws the letter, which is pretty sweet. Okay, and the way we're going to draw that is using our beat operator. So let's do what we've been doing. Select our beat, select our ramp. Let's put it in a null for good practice. Awesome. And basically, the settings I found that were nice, you know, this one, as it goes forward, it's kind of deleting stuff. What we can do is with the second one, 0 is nothing, and then it fully draws it out. So we turn off first U, or second U, we will do that. And yeah, right away you'll see it's pretty janky, right? And the reason is if we look at our points, you know, the text SOP is only going to draw the points it needs. You know, from here, you know, if there's a straight line, it's only going to draw that with 2 points, which is leading this to draw at an inconsistent pace. And what we can do to fix that is use a resample SOP. And let's go ahead. Basically, resample is going to, you know, there's a couple parameters, but you can tell it, you know what, make this with a different number of points here. Cool. And now let's look at our points. You'll see that all of our points are, we told it to do a length 0.01. And so now this should draw at a consistent speed. Awesome. All right. And lastly, let's, you know, since we're in a geo, let's go ahead, put a null, and turn on render and display. So now let's make the viewer active, turn off adaptive, let's turn off adaptive homing, bam. All right, cool. Now we've got our letter drawing. Just going to go ahead. It's going to copy this line material. I won't reference it just in case, you may want to adjust these separately. Cool. And yeah, let's just zoom in. I mean, we could either zoom in or change the geo scale. And awesome. So now we are drawing out the letter. Cool. So we've got two scenes down. This one's drawing out. This one's panning. A little fast, but like I said, we can adjust that later. All right. So now for one of the more tricky ones is this effect here. And so looking at our source video, I mean, we're not going to do exactly what they do, but a large portion of this, they're really zoomed in, kind of showing all the letters kind of moving left and right. And one of the more challenging things about this came down to personal preference, but you'll see this N here. The letters aren't just purely moving from random positions. What I wanted to try to do was have them either moving left, right, or up, down. So, none of these letters are moving diagonally. Yeah, I was able to figure that out. So following our pattern here, let's add a new base. Let's pop right in. Let's throw a render down just to get our render network going. Throw a camera. Out. Okay. Cool. So first things first, what I'm going to do is use the first word and lay out all the letters. And for this network, what we're going to do is each letter is going to be its own individual geometry. So yeah, to do that, instead of using a base to contain all of them, I'm going to add a geo. And one nice thing is in Touchdesigner, you can have geometries inside other geometries. So you'll see I have a geo, another geo, and it does indeed render in our render network. Cool. So let's see. Let's go ahead and let's get, no, that's, yeah, let's go ahead and select our table here. All right, so I'm selecting the table of the letters. Let's go ahead and make this a null. Name it letters. Cool. Okay. And what I'm going to do, let's go back out. Let's go to this draw letter. Just copy these. Go back into our network. Paste. Let's go inside here now. All right, so I'll delete most of this. We just need our text SOP. All right, so what I've done, once again, so from the top level, let's like letter, I don't know, puzzle. I don't have a good name for this out of my mind. So in our project, I made a new base. Let's go in here. It has our render network. And right now we have the geometry. Let's name this geo letters. And inside of this geometry, I've made another geo, which right now has one letter. Cool. And so what we're going to do is use a replicator. And so, what the replicator can do is you provide it, usually a table or chop of data, and for each row or sample in that piece of data, it'll copy an operator. So for the template dat, I'm going to pass in this, and then usually I'll rename my main geo letter master and plug that in there. And you'll see we have 7 columns or 7 rows. And let's tell it we don't want to ignore first row. If our first row was the key, like letter or something, we would ignore. But all right, so now our replicator is making one of these for each one of our letters, but we still have to hook it up. One thing I'm going to do, good pattern typically is, our master, we actually don't want this to render at all. So, this master is just referenced when these get created. So I'm going to turn these flags off. Another thing I'm going to do is go in here and do customize. Let's add a page called letter and a custom parameter called letter. This will be a string. Let's go up and put the letter. And so now bam. All right, so in our text SOP, in the text parameter, I'm referencing custom param letter. Now we go up, so now this, no matter what we put, it'll render that letter. Great. So now we want to, all these now just still say Y. So we're going to do a couple things here. This is a script that gets run for the replicator. First thing we'll do, they already give you this code, which is quite nice. We're going to turn on the display and render flags. So basically what that does, also, whenever you make changes to this, you're going to want to hit recreate all replicators. You'll see now these have render and display flags on. So this one stays off. When these get made, it gets displayed. Cool. And next what we're going to do is, so C is referencing the specific operator that got created. So for each one of these, we're going to set C.parameter letter to be an expression. So what this is going to do, this text is going to be set as an expression in here. Cool, so we can be letters, me.digit, so we can reference a digit. So 0, 1, 2. So basically get the row for that letter. We only have one column, so 0. And let's see. All right, bam. So, if this one stayed how it was, we can, what I like about leaving this one freeform is, we can test out any letter, see how it works. And now these ones all got this expression filled in. So yeah, now we have all of our letters. All right, next what we want to do, let's split left and right. Just go ahead and put on a geo viewer here. All right, so as I mentioned, we want to kind of animate all these letters coming into their final positions. And one requirement I made for myself was they can only animate either left, right, or up, down. And just another note before we get into this, the final positions they're animating to are not actually exactly where they're going to land. I'll explain why. This is something the new text comp might be able to help with. This text comp, you can actually pull out the positions of individual letters. But, for the sake of this, let's just relook at this one more time. Our final example. The final position of the letters, we're not showing a full zoomed out view here, but basically where they're going to land is all evenly spaced between each other. One thing to know is with fonts, a lot of fonts, unless it's a monospace font, the spacing between the letters are pretty specific and different between each letter. So yeah, for the sake of this tutorial though, we are just going to evenly space the letters, and it really shouldn't be noticeable at all in the final output. So easiest way I have to do that is using a line operator, or a line SOP, excuse me. Okay, let's see here. So this line, we're going to use it to determine the position of the letters. So first thing here, let's make the size of it be the size of the number of letters we have. All right, I'm going to do -1. So basically now this line is going to go from 0 to 6. And we want a number of points to be our number of letters, no -1. Let's turn this display, whoops. Nope, that should not be the, apologies. We want the second point X to be, there we go. All right, so now, make our viewer active. Let's go ahead. A little hard to see, but we have 7 evenly spaced dots now. Cool. But you'll notice it goes from 0 to 6 right now. It's because I'm kind of lazy. Use a transform to center this. You could divide this by 2 and, have point A divide by -2, but I really am a fan of this post tab in the transform. Basically what we'll just do is translate X, center it. So now our line is in the middle of our coordinates here. Let's hook this up to a null. Okay, and then let's do a stop to chop. One last null. Let's call this positions. Okay, so we're going to drive the position of our letters from this chop. And let's just make sure that you'll see here we have 7 samples. Let's just double check. We have 7 rows. Great. So you want to make sure these two things have the same number of samples or rows or whatever. And now in our replicator, let's put some more expressions. I'm just going to delete these comments. So let's copy this, paste, and what I want to do now is tx. So the tx of our geometry, tx is a built-in parameter, so we don't need to add it ourselves. Tx will reference positions. That's our chop down here. Positions. And we want to get the tx channel and use our digits as the index. Copy paste. ty, the ty channel. All right. So, we edited our replicator. Also, if you edit this code, for it to take effect, you need to tap update. Great. So yeah, now we have all our letters lined up. As I mentioned, you'll see here the spacing looks a little weird between the Y and the O versus the O and the U. Same with the TUB. As I mentioned, fonts have specific kerning values between letters to make the font look evenly spaced. But yeah, this uneven spacing isn't going to be noticeable at all. So we don't need to worry about that. Awesome. So basically what we have now is the final positions of the letters. And what we're going to do is animate these randomly, basically create the start position. To do that, it's going to require a few operators. So let's put down a base. Let's call this random positions. All right. So let's get going. All right. Great way for random values. is the noise chop. Bam. All right. First things first, let's change the number of samples to be how many letters we have. So in the channel tab, click samples for each one. Always do that first, or else the values you put are going to be off. All right, so start at 0, and we're going to end at, whoops, letters. So remember, that's our dat with all the letters in it. Dot num rows -1. Mouse middle click, we can see we have 7 samples. And you'll see this doesn't look too noisy. It's because we only have certain, so little amount of samples. And we're just going to go ahead and get some random values. No need for this to be, different. Random is going to work perfectly for us. Lastly, we're going to generate 2 channels. Little shortcut here. Each of them starts with a T, and then we're going to make an XY channel. So we have TX, TY. All right. And yeah, let's just go ahead. Just give this a go. Send this out. And let's just see what we're working with here. So what we can do now is do a crossfade between these. So they start at a random position. We can even try any random position we want. Cool, but a couple things wrong with this. First thing is they're all grouped up. Secondly, as I said, all these are moving pretty diagonal right now, which was something I didn't want. Okay. So let me take a look here. All right, so yeah, the way I did it is a little convoluted. Maybe a better way, but honestly didn't mind the way I came up with. So the idea I had was basically, each letter's either going to move horizontally or vertically. And so the idea I had was to use a pattern chop, which will be a triangle pattern. And we're going to make the length be our number of samples. We can get rid of this -1, so length should be 7. Then our number of cycles is our number of letters divided by 2. Next, we want our phase to be 0.25. Let's name our channel X or Y. Great. And so I'll explain my thing in here, but just first, let's put a math really quick. Or, no, we don't even need a math. You could do this in the noise, but I don't know. As I said, I kind of like to do things in separate operators. Basically, instead of going from -1 to 1, I want to go from 0 to 1. So my thinking here was half of these letters are going to only move on the X, half of them only on the Y. And so, basically when there's a 1 value, they're going to move on the X. When there's a 0 value, it'll move on the Y. Cool. So what I'm going to do is add a rename. So I'm going to rename this to TX. So anything that's a 1, it's going to be moving on TX. Next, what we want to do is we want to flip this for TY. I'm going to throw down an expression chop. And in here, we can do 1 minus. This basically flips it. So now anything that's a 1 here will be Y. Let's rename it just to stay organized. TY. Great. Give ourselves a little more space. All right, let's go ahead and merge these. Great, so now we have a chop. It's 7 samples, so number of letters. And we have 2 triangle patterns that are flipped. And what we can do now is, let's see. Okay, we can scale. All right, so just before we use this really quick, I also wanted all of them to, instead of having some slow, some are fast. What I went ahead and did is, well, first, let's throw a math. One thing you'll notice, copy and paste this really quick. Sometimes I get a better view of noise, especially if I'm having a low number of samples. Sometimes I'll copy and paste it. You know, leave this off to the side and make the number of samples really high. Okay, so if you can see, you know, just looking at this one, it's hard to tell the minimum and maximum values of this noise, but if we look here, it does indeed go from 1 to -1. So first thing, I want this to go from 0 to 1, I believe. Do I actually? Let me see here. Never mind, sorry. I think I had an error in my old network. So yeah, it's fine with it going from, I believe, or let's see here. Basically what I want to do, in order for these to move at the same speed, let's go to round. Let's show our viewer active. Like, dot per sample. Ah, right. Okay, that's the reason I did. So basically, I want all of these letters to either be, first of all, they're only moving the horizontal or vertical, and then should be one full unit away from their intended position. And so right now, if we do rounding on our original noise, since it goes from -1 to 1, it crosses 0. So the way I did this was first I make the noise, instead of going -1 to 1, go from 0 to 1. Now you'll see these points all land on either 0 or 1. Great. We can do the merging or the rounding here. So this math has a range, and we also round. Great. Okay, next what we do is, all right, let's just connect this here. Boop. I'm going to do another math that pulls this back to -1 and 1. And so basically, now our noise still goes from -1 to 1. However, none of these land on 0. They're either -1 or 1. Okay, awesome. All right, and so now what we're going to do, so let's take a look here. So you'll see this first point, for example, the x value is 1, the y value is 1. And if we were to animate this, this would move diagonally. And so that's where this guy comes into play. I'm going to take a math chop, and they both have the same channels, and we're going to multiply. So now, this pattern, remember, it basically turned on or off the x and y. And so this first point now does have an x value, so the y is going to be 0. And then anything that has a y value, second point has -1, the x is 0. Awesome. We can delete this noise here. Lastly, actually, I'm not sure if we need this. I did have a TZ in my original, but let's see if we may not need that. Cool. So let's send this out of here. Great. Go back. All right, so we have our random positions, our final positions, and let's take a look. Okay, so things do now indeed only move. Oh, no, actually that B is moving diagonally. Interesting. Ah, right. Yes, it's not exactly what we want. And you also see they start in this cross shape. And that is because, let's move our cross down. We want to use these random positions as offsets from our original positions. So let's throw math in here. We'll do combine chops, add, and now these random values are getting added to this. And yes. Yep, that's why I need the TZ. You'll see this has TXTYTZ. So what we can do is TZ is going to be 0, but just for the sake of it, or, just because we need it, throw down a pattern, make it a constant. Amplitude can be 0, and the length can be the length of our letters table. And let's name it TZ. Let's merge it. Bam, TXTYTZ. Great. All right, so now this math is looking good. Also, sometimes just as a note, right now these are adding correctly, but sometimes if the order of your channels differs, but the names are the same, you'll want to go in here. Sometimes you may need to match by channel name. Right now, coincidentally, they're in the order TXTYTZ, but sometimes I've been caught up when the order doesn't exactly match. Great. Okay, so what we've done is we've added these offsets to our original positions. Let's plug this in now for the start of the cross. Make this bigger. And let's take a look. All right. So you see these letters all move either left or right or up, down. Okay. So let's get this animating. So as we did our other ones, let's throw a select. Let's select our IOP.beat. We can select the ramp channel. Great. Yeah, and then I think we can just hook up to a null. And now we can say this is going from 0 to 1. Just make sure that's all correct. Cool. One last thing we'll do is, once again, this is kind of a little boring. It's just doing the same thing over and over again. So what we can do is, let's copy that. We can go into our noise here. And, the way noise works is you can change the seed, changes the values. So what we'll do is, I just copy this select, select our beat. Now we don't want ramp, we want the pulse. And basically, this is something I use a lot in my work is I'll have my beat pulse, hook it up to a count. We don't need a limit for this one. This can keep counting indefinitely. It's actually kind of nice to keep counting. What we'll do is use this as the seed. So now, since we're using one global beat chop, it's gonna animate from random positions to their normal positions with the ramp. And then when the beat resets, we are triggering a new noise value. Awesome. Okay. And so back at our network for this little scene here, we now have the letters randomly moving. What we're going to do, let's move this in a little. We can zoom it in a bit. Cool. Okay. Yeah, we're almost done here. One little nice to have. You'll notice, okay, these positions are resetting, but the camera is kind of in the middle. And so, yeah, what I'm going to do here is randomize the camera position. Okay. So let's just copy this count. So once again, this is going to count up every beat. Okay. Throw down a noise. And the noise samples. Want this to be one sample. So I'll put 0, 0. Great. Just double check what I have here. All right, noise. This can be random. Oops. The seed. Do that. And so here, let's name this TX. I'm going to randomize the TX and TY. Just one note here. I could do TXY here to get two channels. However, I want to change the range of them independently. So we're going to make two noises. This will be TY. And since they're now separate and they had the same seed, they're both the same. So what I do a lot of times is I will just add a random number. You know, we still want to change every beat, but in order to make them different, add a random number. Now what we can do, we'll put a math. Let me see here, did I? Text SOP size. Let's go ahead and do a select. Let's select our, actually, let's check what that one is. Double check here. Text SOP size was the, okay. So you know what, let's go back in here. What we're gonna do is, let's think here for a sec. Okay. Let's go back in here. I'm going to copy this. There may be a better way to organize this, but take a time. What we're going to do, let's close this really fast. And split our network. Basically, I'm just going to get the size of this line here. So just open left and right. So we can go get this line that draws the final positions. And okay, cool. All right. Actually, you know, I guess we, no. Let me see what I did in my other one. Text SOP out 2. Is my out 2. You know what? I think we can derive these scalars. I don't think we need this actually. Sorry. So what I'm trying to do is, let's put this back. We want to move the camera randomly. So TX. Let's just use the size of the number of letters, which we did reference here. That's letters. Now let's select this. We could actually, I don't know if we can just reference this. All right, so this math. All right, so sorry for the confusion here. Let's see. All right, so we want our range. Okay, so I made a noise of TX, noise of TY. TX math, I want to go from -1, 1 to, okay, bam, that seems to work. We can actually just reference our IOP. All right, so this can go from negative 3.5 to 3.5 since we have 7 letters. Delete those. I think the Y we can just hard code. So this could be like, I wonder how big here. We look here, it goes from 1 to 1. Let's just do negative 1 to 1. Actually, don't even need a math. That already goes from negative 1 to 1. Let's merge these. Do a null. All right. Could just collapse this just to keep things tidy. Cam position and whatever you want. All right, and so now this camera, TX, TY. Okay. All right, let's bring the TY down. Let's actually put a math here. Maybe it goes from negative 1 to 1, maybe negative 0.5. Whoops. 0.5. One thing, you don't need this, but whenever you make a base by right-clicking and grouping things together, it'll bug in Touchdesigner. It'll name it out too. Okay. All right, so yeah, now we can see, let's see, where's our camera? Letter puzzle. There's our camera. You'll see our camera is moving to different spots now. Awesome. Okay, so yeah, we pretty much got what we need. I did have a zooming in. Let me show you. I did make one that does this, but I'm confident you could figure out how to do that one. It's very similar to this one. Instead of camera panning left to right, the camera just zooms in. Yeah, so let's kind of wrap things up here. What we're going to do now is we want to switch between these. Let me close this. So yeah, we want to be able to have this animation go through each one of these. So I'm going to throw down a switch. Let's go ahead and, even though it is right here, for the sake of consistency, let's select our beat. We want pulse. Let's connect this to a count. Sometimes I like stacking them on top of each other. It's a little tighter. Let's put a null. And what we're going to do is every beat trigger, it's going to switch between these three. And in order to do so, this count is going to need a limit. Let's loop it. And what we can do is write a reference to our switch one dot inputs. So inputs are all the ones hooked up here. We can do length. I believe we want -1. Let's see. All right, so now let's hook up these three. Also, you'll need to, sometimes when hooking things up, it gets funky. Just give it a pulse. Let's see, 0, 1. I think my limit was correct. 2. Yep, 0, 1, 2. Great. All right, and so now, whenever the beat goes, it switches between these. All right. As I mentioned, let's go back to our beat. Let's slow this guy down here. Nice little ambiance movement. Let's add an out. Okay. All right. And last but not least, let's go ahead and spruce this up a bit. So we're going to do some effects at the very end of this, including adding color, like I mentioned. One little convenient pattern is you can throw down a null and then right-click, collapse selected. That will create a base for you with it in and out. Call this post. All right, and so not only going to get it exactly, but they've got this like glowing effect around the letters. And yeah, in Touchdesigner, we have feedback, just pretty easy to throw down. So let's go ahead and add some feedback. So yeah, what I did, let's go add some noise. I didn't even set up. Right, I've been working at 1280, 720. I'd recommend 1920, 1080. You can do it even higher if you want, but I also actually, I kind of forgot to do this, but one nice thing too, I'll usually reference my parent container, so parent.scene.width. Anything that has dimensions, any top, I'll usually reference this operator. And then if I ever do need to go higher res, I can just change this. Cool, so we have some noise. Just gonna copy some settings that I had that were nice. So I had harmonics 1. You know, obviously play with these, but these are going to kind of make our feedback a little more interesting, you could say. Transform. I'm going to animate on the Z. Let me see what my speed was. Divide by 5. You know, absolute time will keep going forever. So nice. We have some animation. I'm going to set the alpha to 0. This may not be necessary, but all right. So next, throw down a comp, and it's going to be multiply. Great. Go ahead and add some blur. As I mentioned, yeah, this post-process effect, feel free to play around here. These are just settings that worked for me. So, you know, we have the original. We're going to do some stuff and create a feedback loop. So, if you remember a feedback loop, first you want to actually lay it out in this fashion. Throw your feedback down. You can do some effects. Let's do a transform. I kind of want this color to come out at the viewer. Usually you want to do really small values here. 1.01. Just check. There's a parameter edge. Let me see. I'm not sure if this does anything. I have that set off. We can come back to that. Level. Is that a level? And turn the opacity down. I'll add one more blur. All right. Whoops. Oh boy, didn't mean to do that. Move this over. Okay, and to complete our feedback loop, we're going to composite the beginning of the loop with, I believe I have over. Okay, let's do over. And lastly, drag the composite onto the feedback. Great, and we get this kind of thing. Actually, one change we're going to do. Yes. One thing to keep in mind is right now, all these are 8-bit fixed color format. A lot of times when I'm working, try not to use 8 bits. 8 bits isn't a lot of color depth. And one reason in this specific network, a lot of times I notice in the feedback, having 8-bit color will leave some remnants and stuff. So you could either, my recommendation is in each of the renders, you could use 32 or 16. So now this can add to performance. Let's take a look. This is 1.4 milliseconds. Let's see what 8-bit was. You know, there's definitely a bit of a, oh, it's interesting. This is going longer. But yeah, let's leave it 16. Let's go on each one of these. You could also, if you didn't want to go through all, since I'm using it mostly for the feedback, another thing you could do, throw down an operator like transform before your feedback and change it here. So, you know, it would be 8-bit here, 16-bit to the right. But I'm just going to go in and add it to all these. Great, let's check this. Okay, 16-bit. You'll see middle mouse, these are still 8, and that is because we need a pulsar feedback. Oh, let's make our noise. You can mouse middle click to check, so 16. This noise. Make this 16. Once again, feedback still 8. Pulse it. Great. You'll see there is black, but we will fix that. So let's go ahead and insert. So now what we're going to do, let's put our line one over this faded one. Over. And lastly, now to get our color, we can throw a constant down and pick a nice color red. I just went with pure red. All right. Let's take a look. So yeah, we've got Stranger Things intro. Let's check it goes through all of them. You know, you can play with the timing, with the beat. Obviously, you can create more of these scenes. You know, it's not exactly like the intro, but whoops. I think close enough. Whoops. Where's YouTube? Yeah, hope you enjoyed this tutorial. And yeah, thanks for watching.